Okay, welcome to the second part of the video. This is complete reassembly of the Sig Sauer M17. As you can see, I got every single part and piece taken apart, and now I'm going to show you how to put it all back together. So I'm going to start with my slide first, okay? And I'm going to put my rear sight back on. So first I need to get my loaded chamber indicator and put that back in. This here has two little pins right here, one on each side that it hinges on, the spring in the back, and the indicator in the front. So that's exactly how we're going to put it in our slide. You can see these two little notches here for the pins that it hinges on. We'll drop it right down in there like that. And then our rear sight plate will hold that on. So we'll put that on next. Just like that. And press it down. Do a little function check, make sure it works properly, which it does. We'll flip it over and we'll put our screw in. T15 screw. And this does not have to be cranked down super tight. You don't want to strip the threads out, okay? It's got a little bit of Loctite on it from the factory. Just snug it up, just like that. Next we'll put our extractor in. So all my parts have been nice and cleaned, and then you're going to oil or grease wherever there's metal on metal contact. Not all metal on metal, but like the extractor, we don't put any lube on that. But that only drops in one way, so we're going to put that in there just like this. And then you'll see this little window in the back when we put our extractor guide in there. This has a leg. See how one side's longer than the other? Down here. So I want the longer side facing out, straight out, just like that. It's going to capture the extractor, okay? So when I slide it in the hole here, if you're watching the window, as I'm pushing it in, you can actually see it capture the extractor. If you have it like 180 degrees, you go to push it in, you won't see it. So turn it until you see it, and that's where that needs to be. So we'll install our striker. Striker channel, completely bone dry, no lube at all. Same thing on your striker, completely bone dry. So we'll push that in there like this. And then I'm going to press down on my striker so it's spring loaded. So I can get my back plate started. Just like that. And then I'm going to push in on my rear extractor spring guide. And I'll hear it click into place. Just like that. And then I'm going to turn my rear extractor spring guide. I'm going to push it in, start turning it, and then I'm letting off the pressure right now, okay? It's staying in by itself, but it's not locked into place. So I need to just keep rotating it until I hear it lock into place, just like that. Okay. And there you have it. That's the slide reassembled. We'll put our barrel back in it. And our guide rod assembly. And there you go. And now we'll start working on the FCU. Okay, so the first part of reassembling our FCU, I'm going to take my Sear housing and I'm going to insert my takedown safety lever spring. I'm just going to put that in there like that. Put that in there just like that. So to explain this before I go and put it all together, what I was doing earlier to remove it is I'm grabbing my 90-degree pick, I'm putting it in the front of the spring as far as possible as I can so I can collapse that spring, okay? And what that's going to allow is for the leg here on my takedown safety less pressure on it so I can pull it straight up and out. So when we reassemble it, we're going to pull the spring towards this way. So I can drop that leg in there and then let the spring go and push right up against the leg here. Okay. So on the other side here, this is where our disconnector goes. We're going to put a drop of oil in there. And I use a Q-tip, kind of spread it around. And I'll put my disconnector back in. Now lube that up. A little bit of oil on the other side. And then we're going to slide this into our FCU, kind of at an angle. Pushing it down, in, and forward. Just like that. And you can see my holes lined up. That's where my roll pin is going to go in to hold that. So here's my pin. I'll get it started. And then we're going to hammer that in. It goes in pretty hard, so don't be afraid to hit it. And when I hammer this in, I want it to be sticking out evenly on both sides. A little bit this side, a little bit that side. Okay. Still need to go some more. And there you go, that looks pretty good. A little bit this side, a little bit that side, maybe one more hit. There you go. And on to the next step. Okay, so my next step is I'm going to insert my safety lever in my Sear. This goes together a little bit differently than the standard P320 without the manual safety, because the manual safety, it gets in the way on this one, okay? So what I'm going to do is my safety lever, it's hooked like this. The hook faces forward and it's at the top. And it's going to go into the Sear housing towards me, right against the side here, okay? So what I do is I lay this on its side, the big hole here, the big hole in the safety lever. I'm going to slide this in, try to line up those holes. Then I'm going to use a pick or a punch, just drop it right down inside there. Okay, so that's where that needs to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Sear and I'm going to put that down inside there as well. The Sear is going to actually hold the safety lever because I'm going to have to remove this punch or this pick. And nothing's going to hold that safety lever until this is in there. So you got your two springs here. There are little posts that these springs sit on. So if your spring fell off, just push the spring back onto the post. Use some grease. Grease is like glue. Just put 2 dabs of grease on there. Put your springs on there and that'll hold them, making it easier to put in. So make sure those 2 springs are relatively even. And then what we're going to do is, in your Sear housing, there's 2 little channels, one here, one here. One spring goes on each side, okay? Make sure your safety lever is orientated in the right position before putting your Sear in. So I'm just going to drop this Sear down in there now. Just like that. Okay. It's going to want to fall forward, so sometimes you got to put your finger underneath here and hold it back. So that's where that needs to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to install my Sear alignment tool. I can actually pull this one right out now, okay, because that safety lever isn't going anywhere. And then in the small hole here, that's what this tool is made for. It's a perfect size to fit in there. capture all of those parts. So my punch has gone through the side here, through the Sear, and out the other side, and because the Sear is in there, it's kind of capturing my safety lever. It can't go anywhere. So this is going to make it easier for us for the next step. Okay, so like I said before, this goes together a little bit differently than the standard 320 without the safety. Problem is our safety lever gets in the way when we're putting some of this stuff together. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to install my Sear pin, which is this one right here. Put a light coat of grease on there, and I'm going to push out my Sear alignment tool as I'm putting that in there. Just like that. And everything's captured in here now. Nothing's going to fall out, okay? So my next step, I would normally want to put my safety lever pin in, but because it's part of the safety and it has this arm on it, it's going to get in the way of our takedown safety lever. So the next thing I'm going to do is put in my takedown safety lever. So as I explained earlier, we're going to need to pull this spring forward, or backwards, sorry, to make room for the little arm that comes off that takedown safety lever to go inside the slot there. So pull this pin back out. So we can put our takedown safety bar in there. It's going to go in crooked just like we took it out. It's going to go in there just like that. And I'm going to reach in here with my pick, pull that spring back, put this leg down in the slot, and then let the spring go. And just actually fell into place. Usually this will still be like that. Push that all the way in, that'll slide to the side, push it all the way that way, and then pull it up, and it'll lock into place. Then we can push our pin back in. And then some of these pins snap right in, other ones you got to give it a little tap, kind of locks it in place. So the next thing we're going to do is install our safety lever, which is part of our manual safety. Okay, so we're going to flip it over, and you can see that my safety lever is just kind of flopping all around here. The hole isn't lined up very good there, so just kind of keep an eye on that as you're pushing your safety lever / manual safety arm back through there, okay? Sometimes that takedown lever needs to be moved back to make clearance for the pin to go through that hole. So basically I'm just going to twist that as I'm going in, and I use this other punch on this side to kind of line up that safety lever, the holes, so that can go all the way through. Okay, so we'll push that all the way in like that, and then we'll add the other half of our manual safety. Okay, so the other half of our manual safety, first we're going to push this pin back in. Okay, probably get it with your finger now. If not, a little screwdriver. That's the Sear pin, because we got to move that out of the way so that this arm can get by that pin. That pin keeps the arm from going too far so it doesn't fall off. So we have that pushed in, basically pushed my takedown safety lever towards the side here again. And then if you can see here, this little track is what this little part here that's protruding rides in. And that little part there springs in and out. There's a latch mechanism in here that hooks it to this. So as you're rotating it, it's pushing this in, and it allows it to unlock so you can pull it out. When you put it on, it's unlocked, and then as you rotate it, it moves this in such a way where it locks onto that post. Okay, so when we put that in, it needs to be starting down here. Okay, so we're going to put that on here just like that, and then we're going to rotate it until it's It's very hard to see, I know. But that little silver tab is in the bottom of that track. Okay? So make sure both your arms are the same. Not one hanging down here and one up here. Okay, they're both the same. And then we're just going to press them together and rotate that down, and that will lock it into place. So now you can see that track a little bit better. It's right here. That pin on this little silver piece on the inside has moved up, and it's locked this on. Okay? So then what we need to do is push our pin, our Sear pin right here. From this side, we just need to push it back to where it needs to be. Just like that. So the little pin here is what actually locks it from turning too far, this, to unlock it. So that's sticking back out the way it needs to be. Operates properly. On to the next step. Okay, so I'm going to install my trigger bar, my trigger, and my trigger bar spring before my slide catch, because that's easier with that out of the way. Easy way to do this is we're going to put our trigger bar spring into our trigger bar. And you can see the trigger bar is a little bit different on the manual safety. A little piece of it's missing, so it can clear the safety here. Other than that, it's completely identical, and they don't behave any differently as far as performance. So it's hooked in there. This hook is facing up. I'm going to put it in through the back side, through that loop. I'm going to rotate this around. Just like that. The little leg of my trigger bar is behind the Sear housing. It's flush against over here. I'm going to slide my trigger in from the side. Does not go in through the bottom. It goes in through the side. And it's got to be facing as far forward as possible so it can slide all the way in. And then the hole here on my trigger bar, I'm going to line it up with the pin on my trigger. And then I'm going to move things around until that pin drops into the hole on the trigger bar. You can see it's through the hole here. If this doesn't line up, just kind of move your trigger side to side, get that to line up. And then I'm going to use my finger pushing against the trigger as I lift up, out, and around and guide my trigger bar into the Sear housing. So there's that. And then we'll install our slide catch. Lining up our holes right here. Slide this pin through there. Function check. Everything works properly. Okay, so as you can see, I offer plenty different color Sear alignment tools. Once I get enough people interested, I'll place an order. It takes usually about a week to get them to me, and then I ship them out immediately. I do have a few pink and green still left that are available. I can mail those out Monday if you're interested. So with that, we're going to put our FCU back into our grip module. And sometimes you have to push the trigger back so that it clears the hole in the bottom of your module. Just like that. Slide that down into place. We'll put our takedown lever back in. Rotate it like that. And then install our slide. And there you go. Complete disassembly and reassembly of the P320 M17. I hope you have found this video helpful, and thank you for watching.